Hello again. Hello again, and welcome back to Flying Cloud Zen's YouTube channel. These public talks that we offer out to the interweb, one of the interwebs anyway. We just offer them out there. I hope these are of support to you, help to you. Maybe they're challenging or confusing or intriguing or tweaking in such a way that they cause you to ask questions, explore yourself and your experience in perhaps a different way, perhaps more deeply, or perhaps something about them makes sense, resonates with you, or doesn't make sense and causes you to want to do some investigation. Right? Good. Good. That's what talks are here to do. Right? Whether they're confusing or whether they make sense to us, we hope when we offer talks that there's fuel, right? Energy, something that causes you to explore further this precious life that we all share. So today, much in that spirit, hopefully, I'm going to offer something kind of informally to you. Good days and bad days are the words I have here in front of me. That's kind of title that I gave it. I was just exploring the idea of, yeah, I had a good day today. Yeah, oh, today was really, really terrible. It's a very common thing that we say. And when we check in with each other, when we meet after not seeing each other for a few days or a few weeks or even a few years, how have you been? Oh, I had a really good day. Oh, I had a really bad day. What common parlance that is. What a common way of perceiving our world. So before I dive in, what I encourage you to do is to pay attention, to just add to your list of things to notice as part of your mindfulness practice. Notice your word choice. I'm not talking about criticism. I'm not talking about judgment. I'm just talking about curiosity. Just sort of have part of your awareness be devoted to, I want to listen when I'm thinking, and especially when I'm speaking. I wonder what's underneath my word choice. Right? Our awareness is very much patterned by our language. Right? And so the word choice that we use oftentimes expresses some layers of understanding that we're carrying with us we're not even aware of. Right? And some of those layers of understanding that we carry are really deep, quite profound. And also, a lot of the stuff that we say reveals big pockets in ourselves of misunderstanding or beliefs that are not only false, but really, really hurtful. Right? Word choice is important. So just kind of notice. Just kind of notice as you're going about your day, just sort of the words that you tend to use when you're communicating to others about your experience of being alive. And be curious, see what you notice. That's where this talk came from, is me noticing, checking in with somebody saying, yeah, it was a really good day. And then I went, hold on a minute, a good day. And I kind of stored that in my brain on a little sticky note saying, pay attention to that later. And I kind of went back to it and said, okay, I've been alive long enough to know there are 7.5 billion of us on this planet. And a really good day for Busho might be a really crummy day for his neighbor. So there aren't really good and bad days, are there? I'm talking about the nature of the experience that I had. I found today pleasant. I found today easy. I found today conducive to getting my needs met or whatever, right? Whereas the bad day that I had was one where I experienced affliction or pain or emotional upset or confusion, right? And so to the degree that I imagined that my day happens to me, because it is good, yay, I like it, or it is bad, I don't like it, is the degree to which I am externally referenced, and I'm imagining that things just happen to me and I'm the recipient of them. And foundational to Buddhist thought and to the mindfulness movement is the idea that the way we pay attention and what we pay attention to and what our own ideas, narratives, beliefs, resistances are to those things, that's where our ease and our comfort and our joy come from. Oh my goodness, that's also where our pain and our restriction and our suffering comes from. right? No good days, no bad days. Just what gets activated and moves inside of me in response to them, right? So that's kind of why I want to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So let's start by just ask yourself. I don't know if it's late in the day when you're watching this or early in your day, but kind of just ask yourself, well, what kind of day am I having so far? What kind of day am I having? Nice weather, good health, free-flowing traffic usually means that label good day. Rain, a toothache, a flat tire usually mean a bad day. And so now do what I'm inviting us all to do together. The activity of mindfulness is be curious about that. We're not arguing with it yet, we're just being curious about it. Is that true? Is this a good day? Is this actually a bad day? What is this? What am I actually talking about, right? Because as I said, 7.5 billion of us are all experiencing this day in a different way. 7.5 billion versions of today. 7.5 billion different lenses and sets of perception through which the experience of today is being filtered. Right? So what if your conclusion about good or bad wasn't based on whether or not you liked the things that you imagine happened to you? What if instead your conclusion on how good a day it was based on how carefully you met the discomfort that arose? How carefully and thoroughly you met your own reactivity and your own difficulty, your own suffering, your own resistance. What if that was the metric? Do you see what we're doing here? Instead of the metric being external, good things happened to me, bad things happened to me, we change to actually the way that I meet what happens to me and the storylines that I have about the things that happened to me. There's where the contentment lies. There's where the suffering lies. Do you feel it? We're moving it internally. From being an external focus, we move the focus internal. But do you feel also the agency? There's agency, there's influence, there's power. Because we get to have influence over our own reactivity. And we have influence over the way we meet our discomfort, right? We can't change that it was sunny, or it was rainy, or the traffic was free-flowing, or it wasn't. Somebody died, somebody was born. We don't have control over those things. But boy, do we ever get intimate with this landscape that we carry with us. Ideas, beliefs, reactivity, bodies of suffering, right? There's where our influence lies. So there's something really wonderful, actually freeing, believe it or not, about taking that back and going, oh wait, hold on a minute, this is my project. I can take responsibility for it, I can own it. Because arguing that there are good days and bad days that happen to us is giving up all of our power. And so there's kind of a trapped stuckness in that. Can you kind of feel that? It's like, ooh, I hope tomorrow is good. It's almost a childlike state. I hope good things happen instead of bad. That kind of makes sense when we're very little and we don't have an agency and we don't have the ability to really influence. We don't have much power when we're little, right? But as adults, we have a lot. So, go back to our question. What if the little review you do at the end of the day, what kind of day was it? Was based, again, not on what we imagine the nature of the things that happened to us was. What if instead it was based on how tenderly and how completely you dared to accept and allow the entirety of your emotional landscape? When happiness showed up, you embraced it and let it in and felt it. And when sadness or confusion or anger showed up, you opened the door and you let them in. You accepted that they were there, and you were in relationship with those things. Wow. What if at the end of the day you realized, never once today did I need anything to be different than it was? I never once asked something to stay longer than it wanted to. I never once asked something to leave before it needed to. I just allowed it. Wow. What if your day end review is based on how carefully you noticed your thoughts, how carefully you noticed your inner narratives and your core beliefs, and how intentionally you energized and you supported the truths that you noticed, the things that were real, the things that were true, the things that were loving, the things that were nourishing, and how thoroughly and carefully you corrected all of the falsehoods that you found, the ideas that were wrong, not true, not nourishing, not loving. What if that was your day review? Wow, I was very, very good, very attentive to the nature of my narratives today. And I just didn't let falsehoods stay, and I really encouraged truths to stay. It's a very different metric for what a good day and a bad day looks like, right? Holy cow. In other words, instead of focusing on the people and the things outside of us, outside of our control, whether or not they lined up for us in a way that we imagine fulfilled us with comfort or pleasure or distraction or amusement, what would happen if we practiced Buddhism? What would happen if we practiced mindfulness? What would happen if we were spiritual practitioners who owned our experience and had relationship to the truth of our experience ourselves? That would mean, of course, the challenging work of keeping the focus of our attention inward, here where it belongs, right? Taking responsibility for our experience as we should, and using our energy to attend to it in the spirit of nonviolence, curiosity, and awareness. Simple, not easy. At the end of the day, we can ask ourselves, did I stay connected to the truth of my experience? Was I willing to feel? We call that compassion. At the end of the day, we can ask ourselves, did I stay attentive to what was true and separate it from what was false? We call that wisdom. We all naturally have those capacities. The capacity for compassion, the capacity for wisdom. We all have those. We all have those muscles, and we strengthen them by using them. Did I stay connected to my compassion? Did I stay connected to my wisdom? Right? That's the invitation for all of us. That's what a good day starts looking like. Yes, I did a pretty good job today of staying connected to my compassion and connected to my wisdom, and I used them both. That's a very, very different metric. Isn't that, don't you think? It feels differently to me even to talk about it that way. What an invitation, right? What an invitation that is. So, there's a huge difference in our felt experience of being alive between the way we normally think, I had a shitty day, it rained, and my tooth was killing me, and I had a flat tire, and it was a lovely day. I experienced much discomfort and much difficulty, but I held my pain with such tenderness that I never forgot for even one moment that my nature is loving. And I corrected every falsehood that I found within myself. And I supported and I sustained every truth that I found within myself. What a huge difference. What a huge difference. The difference between those two things in Buddhist terms is version one is kind of a normal human life, normal, ordinary mind, and the second one is spiritual practice. The second one is Buddhist practice. The second one is mindfulness, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Because our normal human mind is always asking for things to be different. Our normal human life is always unsatisfied, at least to some degree. Always unsatisfied. It's always externally focused. Our normal human mind insists on our right to experience happiness and comfort and fulfillment. And it also insists in our powerlessness to provide those experiences for ourselves. Do you feel the double bind there? We insist that our experiences do that for us, keep us happy and distracted and comfortable and fulfilled, right? That our relationships do that the people around us do that our government does that for us, that our church does that for us, that the weather, God, whatever, right? We need the world to do that for us. We ask enlightenment to do that for us, or even meditation to do that for us, right? That is ordinary human mind. That's the way we normally think. Buddhism does not do this. It does exactly the opposite. Buddhism is extremely clear, painfully clear on this point. Pain and suffering exist as a part of human life, and they are not going anywhere. But it's a big caveat here, a big one. But we have insight into how this happens. We have a sense of what we do that also can transform the way we relate to our discomfort and our pain and our dissatisfaction. Right? We understand how we transform those things into something worse, fiercer, suffering. And that's this insistence that things be different than they are. An internal shift. Buddhism insists that we have the agency here. Right? We have the power to work with our patterns of suffering, to relate to them in a different way, to relate to our experience of being alive in a different way. Compassion, wisdom. So please notice something. The quality of heart or mind that we call compassion doesn't need anything to be different than it is. I'm going to say that again because it's a big deal. Compassion doesn't need anything to be different. Compassion doesn't ask suffering to leave. Compassion doesn't let it go. Let it go. Nothing goes anywhere. So compassion doesn't let it go. Compassion, in fact, does the opposite. It holds everything. Suffering is healed, part of the whole. Healed and whole making are the same roots in, I think it's Latin, I don't know. But etymologically, whole making, holy, and healing are all part of the same root. So suffering heals by inclusion. Suffering is healed by inclusion. Compassion heals by inclusion. It heals by holding. It doesn't ask it to leave or change. That's about power. That's about control, actually, right? I need you to change. That's control. Compassion does not have that agenda. Compassion is whole making or healing because it doesn't ask suffering to leave. It just holds it. It includes it. That's a radical shift, isn't it? That's a radical shift. We're right back to our metric again. A good day isn't the day where no suffering showed up. That's not possible. A good day is the day where you realize, oh, it did show up, and I recognized it, and I allowed it. I understood that it was there. I accepted that it was there, and I got very curious about it, and I held it. That's an entirely different universe, right? So, that's compassion. Please notice something else. Wisdom, the other property we talked about, right? Compassion and wisdom. Wisdom doesn't need anything to be different either. Wisdom doesn't ask suffering to leave either. Wisdom simply sees what is true and what is not true. That's it. It just sees. Oh, that's a true thing. Oh, that's not a true thing. That's it. Right? Falsehoods wither in the light of truth all by themselves. right? Wisdom doesn't need to shoo them or excommunicate them or let them go. They just stop having power because we see them for what they are. They just, right? What I'm reminded of whenever I give this teaching, what I'm reminded of is as a very young child, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the ghost in the corner of my room. I was staying at someone else's house, my grandmother's house, and I saw something that oh my God, I didn't recognize it, and I was sure that it was a ghost. I had never seen anything like it, but I knew that I was awake, and I was seeing it, and I was seeing it, and I was so terrified until the light went on, and then it's just a bathrobe. It's just a bathrobe thrown over a chair. I just didn't recognize it. Nothing left. Do you see it? Nothing left. It was just, oh, I didn't see it, and now I do. I had an idea that was causing me a lot of fear. I had an idea that that was a ghost, and that idea was terrifying. Of course. In the light of wisdom, in the light of truth, you just go, oh, it's a bathrobe. All by itself. Poof. The fear vanishes. Of course it does. All by itself. Wisdom doesn't need to do that. Didn't ask anything to be different. It just said, the light's on. Can you see it? Right. Bing. It's one of our huge meditative fruits that we get, right? Compassion and wisdom, that's the activity of Buddha, right? Wisdom and compassion is the functioning of Buddha in the world. The functioning of Buddha consciousness shows up as wisdom and shows up as compassion. And we notice when we're meditating, we notice when we're on the cushion, right? Or sitting in our chairs, when we're doing our mindfulness practice, we're doing our zazen, we're doing our meditation, that our capacity to just sit with something that's uncomfortable and not need it to be different, just hold it, increases. And our capacity to just recognize, oh, there's an idea underneath that. And that idea just isn't true. It's just not true, that's all. I didn't see it before, and now I do. The spell is broken, right? So all we need to do in this whole life of ours, all we need to do in this life from a spiritual point of view is hold with compassion and see with wisdom. So that just means we're always relaxed. We notice when we get tense and we choose to relax. That helps us to soften, helps us to accept. And we always just pay attention. I wonder if that's true. I'm curious. The witness never really leaves. The witness. When meditation is over, we don't have to stop paying attention. We can still carry that witness with us. Oh, I wonder what's going on. Hold, see, relax, pay attention. Right? That's what we're practicing. So I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'll finish because I want to start all over. I want to start all over and say everything that I've said again in just a little bit of a different way in case this language makes more sense. Notice what emotions arise in you right now. Just notice what emotions arise in you when I remind you of this truth. Everyone in your life will have a last day with you, and you don't know when it will be. So what I just said is true. Nobody could argue with that. That's just a true thing. My invitation was to ask you what you felt in response to that thing that is true. You may have noticed any number, actually, of possible emotions. Most commonly, when we think about mortality or separation or loss, mostly we experience variance on fear, anxiety, uncertainty, trepidation, perhaps overwhelm, nervousness, maybe just fear. That makes sense, right? When we imagine death or we imagine loss or separation, we experience fear. That makes sense. In this life, on the path of this human life, fear is always with us, right? It's never absent, right? It's a constant companion, right? It's a function of our physicality. It's just always there. It's sometimes big and sometimes so small we hardly notice it, but it's always there, right? What it means is as long as you're alive, the body is alive, fear isn't going anywhere. It's not leaving. Right? So stop asking it to leave. Let your fear go doesn't make sense. It is a function of your physicality, and it will not leave. You'll be much more content as a human, as a spiritual being in a human container, if you stop fighting your fear, or your sadness, or your shame, or your angry, right? Because the Buddhist path, the spiritual path, is a path for human beings. It is a human response to the truth of the universality of suffering. I'll say that again. The Buddhist path is a path for humans. It is a human response to the universality of suffering. And at its core are these ideas of Buddha consciousness, that we are, shows up in this world as compassion and wisdom. So your wisdom recognized that the sentence I told you is true. We don't need it to go anywhere. And that my response to it, which is probably a little different than yours, has a different shade, a different texture, probably a little different than your next door neighbors, probably a little different than your kids or your parents, but that your response, which contains suffering in the form of fear, resistance, maybe anger, needs to be held and accepted. We don't ask it to go away. Do you feel it? Wisdom didn't ask anything to be different. Compassion doesn't ask anything to be different. Fear is our constant companion. So is sadness. So is shame. All of these are forms of dukkha, the Sanskrit word we use for suffering. On the Buddhist path, as well as all human life, dukkha is our constant companion, of course. And that's okay. That's okay. It's all Buddha, so it's okay, right? Okay, and what I mean by okay is the invitation. Can it be okay that dukkha is your constant companion? What is your answer to that question? Can it be okay that suffering is your constant companion in this life? Can that be okay with you? That's a really good question. Many of us are going to, if we are honest, we are going to answer no. Then the invitation becomes, you're not okay with suffering being your constant companion. That is true. Can you be okay with that? If the answer is still no, can you be okay with that? Do you understand where this is going? Of course you do. At what point can your answer be yes, I accept this as it is, and I don't need it to be different? Even if what I'm accepting is, I can't accept the truth of my life right now. I can't. Okay, I can't accept that right now. Do you feel that this is me lowering my defenses against what's true? I can't get there right now. Okay. Can that be okay? Right? Can it? Because if the answer is no, then you are insisting that reality be different than it is. Can you be okay with the certainty of death and loss? Or do you insist that reality be different than it is? Can you be okay with the uncertainty around when those things are going to happen? Or do you insist that reality be different than it is? Do you see the size of the project? The size of the suffering created by that little no? It's arguing with creation. It's arguing with everything and the way all of this works. It's very common to say no. If you're saying no, know that you're not alone. Know that there's probably 7 billion other people joining you in that no. That is human nature. But also know you are not needing to stay stuck there. You can meet your no with acceptance and curiosity and go, oh, that's why. My fear is so great. My misunderstandings around this need my investigation. Is it really true that mortality is bad news? Maybe that's actually not true. Is suffering held and cared for still suffering? Perhaps not. Maybe now it's just pain. maybe now that can actually be okay. There's probably some ideas you need to look at in yourself that are actually causing you the hurt. Is separation a real thing? Is it true that we can be separated from one another? Buddhism has lots of thoughts about that one. So the place where we find our no, the place where we go, no, I cannot accept that. I cannot be in relationship with that. Good to see. If you found a no today during the course of this talk, good for you, because now you know, because you're paying attention. Oh, there's the no. Now I know where my suffering is coming from. There it is, right there, the no. And so now I know where my work needs to be, right? So can I be okay with my not being okay? Or do I insist that things be different than they are? I bet you can be okay with not being okay. That's where I land a lot with this work. The yes to yes, I completely accept my own mortality and the mortality of everybody that I love, the inevitable sickness, aging, and death of everything, and the separation from all that I know and have affection for. That's a pretty big yes. And most days, that's a little bit bigger than my heart. But can I be okay, and can I hold the heart that still says no? Yeah, most days I can do that. Most days I can do that. So I'll wrap up here. My hope for anyone here listening to this talk is that you're able to meet and hold your pain with such tenderness and such acceptance that you never forget for even one moment that your nature is love. That's who you actually are. It's who you've always been. Right? This is going. It gets old and it gets sick and it dies, of course. It's of infinite value, so we hold it with care. But it's still the smallest parts of us. And the personality that comes with it, and the fear that comes with it, and the shame that comes with it. It's such a small portion of what we really are. Right? My hope is that you remember that. My hope is that during the course of today, you correct every falsehood that you see, every falsehood that you find inside of yourself, and that you support and that you sustain every truth that you find within yourself. My hope is that you all realize that what I said is true. Your nature is love. And you start to realize that your life is a function of love, a function of Buddha. And you start to realize all of your life then as spiritual practice. Infinite opportunity. All right. I thank you for your attention. I hope this has helped you. I encourage you to email me with thoughts or questions, comments. You can leave in the section below or send them off to me. But I'm grateful for your time. I hope it's allowed you to see something that you would not have seen otherwise. That's what this whole thing is about, right? All right. Thank you very much. Hope to see you here again soon.